We are going to open tonight with 3 public hearings before our regular meeting. So what I'd like to do is, I'd like to first open the public hearing on the Aaron Pelletier Public Servant Surviving Spouse Line of Duty Tax Abatement Ordinance. I think everybody on the dais has had an opportunity to review that. We talked and debated a little bit at the last meeting, so I think everybody in their packet has the most up-to-date one written here. And I think we are going to open the public hearing for the public to discuss any opinions for or against this public hearing on this ordinance. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak for or against? Please, sir, come on up, state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Louis Schassler. I'm at 24 Vernondale Court in Southington. First, it's great to see that the council is working to help its residents in this town in time of need. Some of you may remember I was here speaking when you had the new tax rate was in place. I discussed how me and my wife are both disabled and talking about senior citizens, and that we both live on Social Security disability and senior Social Security. I mentioned my wife had cancer 3 times in 4 years. Was able to go back to work. Wasn't able to work after 2017. Just recently found out why this is happening. Everyone thought it was just the cancer and the treatments. She's been diagnosed with a rare neurological disorder called frontotemporal degeneration, or FTD. Some of you might have heard it. Bruce Willis was in the news about a year ago. He has it. The disease attacks the frontal lobe, and it's shrinking from proteins, destroying the frontal lobe. She's only 61 years old. This disease hits people in their 50s, and she developed it probably when she was 54. No one really knew it because she had a high level of education. She had a master's degree in journalism, and they told her that she had a high intellectual reserve that was compensating for the brain that was failing. Today, she has about 80% ability to communicate verbally, and she's starting to lose her ability to communicate in writing. I haven't spoken more than a sentence to my wife in about a month. I get 1-word responses to questions. I can't give her multiple choice questions. She can no longer be left alone. She's unable to drive because part of the frontal lobe, you lose your ability to know danger. She can't be left at home alone. Just like a week ago, I was just a little anecdote. I was making chicken on the grill, had to step inside, and she walks up to me as calm as getting the mail and just gives me one of these. I follow her into the kitchen. She looks out the window and just points. There's fire blazing out of the grill. There's no reaction of fire, this is dangerous, just a courtesy. So she has to be monitored 24/7 right now. It's somewhere between, and I have to go with her on every appointment. She has to come with me unless I can find someone that can watch her, like this evening, someone is watching her. And recently, with this tragedy with the officer, that they lost a spouse, and I never thought that I would outlive my wife. I have more medical issues than she did. But life expectancy with FTD is 3 to 12 years from onset of diagnosis. And they said she probably started in 2017. So she's already 7 years into this. So I might lose her in a year or 2 years. We don't really know yet. We're having, next week, we're having a more advanced PET scan down at Yale and a DNA test being sent to us, which is extremely scary for me at this point, because 40% of FTD patients is genetic, and there is a mutated gene in the DNA code is present if it's there. So if the code is in her DNA, my 2 adult children that are 33 and 28 will need to have this DNA test. And with all what's going on, I couldn't comprehend one of my children knowing their brain will cease to help at 50 years old. I don't know how they would even handle it. So it's got me thinking also, like there's seniors in this town that may have a spouse that has dementia they're dealing with. and they're also living on just Social Security. And we were having it a real hard time, as the last thing I told you, living on two SSDI checks, and it's just, it was really hard. So recently, I just sat down and tried to figure out, well, when my wife passes, I can't work anymore, and senior citizens, they lose a spouse, they have one Social Security check. How could they pay their taxes and still live? I just want to give you a little example of money. My Social Security disability check is $35,500 a year. And by contract, a 40-hour minimum wage job in Connecticut is $32,600. My current taxes are $6,500 a year. If I pay, at today, if I pay $6,500 out of my $3,500, it leaves me $29,000 to live. I've lived in my home here in Southington for 22 years and paid taxes for 22 years. I still have a little under 10 years left my mortgage. I still have a mortgage, it's only $500 a month. But all those expenses, food, utilities, upkeep, it's not possible on $29,000 a year. So what choices do I have? Do I let the town take my home, sell it and move away? The only assets me and my wife have left is our home to send down to our children, which everyone knows today is very hard for young people to even afford a house these days. It's just impossible. So, and there's also seniors in this town that's lived here for decades and paid taxes. What if one of those pass away and their Social Security could be less than mine? How could they afford to pay $6,000 or wherever their home is? So it's great what you're doing for the officer and his spouse, the spouse's officer, but the town needs to look at other options that's going on. There's other people that are really struggling if a spouse dies also. And many of them are seniors and some are disabled. And they just want a little dignity before they die. They don't have to sell their home, be homeless, or whatever options there are. They just want to live out the rest of their life with a little bit of decency. So, and it's not just the town level. The state is a poor job of this. I think I mentioned in Connecticut for tax help for people with income issues like Social Security or whatever. It's only $1,000 off your assessed value, which comes to like $35 a year. And their range of help in the state is $250 to $1,000 a year of actual help for your taxes. But to get the $1,000, you only have to make $13,000 or less. Now, no one in Connecticut owns a home that only makes $13,000. So they need to step up their game also. So I was thinking, what little time I have left with my wife, I can sit there and watch her waste away. Like I mentioned, she was a journalist, and her focus wasn't on news. It was special interest groups, all different things to help the community go along. And so she taught me a lot about that. So what time I have left, I want to get the word out locally, state, whatever way I can to bring a light on there's other people that if they lose a spouse are financially are going to be in ruin and need some help locally or state. It all depends. So I'm asking today if the council wants to reach out and talk to me at all about my situation. It's probably very similar to seniors. My email address is my name, Schassler, SCHASSLER, number 1 at Gmail. The last meeting after I spoke, the Board of Finance, Mr. Leary reached out and contacted me, invited me to one of their meetings. They had about tax help for people. I've been contacting them every once in a while too. We're going back and forth. And I have to get home, so I got to relieve my son that's watching my wife right now. But Mr. Morelli, you made a nice comment in the Citizen last week. You said Southington rallies around the residents. I just hope I think if the town knew more about how the seniors struggle, or maybe people with disabilities struggle, they would want to help also. And that's the few neighbors I've talked to so far. They've offered, hey, you need help? I'll come watch your wife. You can go out, get a breather, whatever. So I know people care in this town. They just don't know. And I think if people knew more, they'd want to help more. So That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Do I pronounce your name Schassler?
Schassler.
Schassler. Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming out. I know it's probably not an easy thing to talk about, and I obviously can see that you're moved by it. The community loves you, I'll tell you right now. And I definitely would like to sit down and have a cup of coffee and talk to you about it. I have been in touch regularly with Chairman Leary about tax abatement issues, and this came up as well. So we'll continue to look at that and see if there's future opportunities that the Board of Finance and the council may be able to also look at. But I'd love to have a cup of coffee and talk with you about it a little bit more, and thank you so much for coming out. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak either in favor or against this, or just want to make any comments on this tax abatement ordinance? Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none, we will then close this public hearing and move on to our second public hearing, line of duty determination ordinance. This is an additional ordinance that was sponsored and co-sponsored. I think Mike and Chris put this together. This is one that was originated from some state legislation that came through and has to do with line of death determination that municipalities can make when an emergency responder dies within 24 hours of a shift. And the municipalities are afforded the option to make it to decide who should make that determination in the municipalities. And so we've created an ordinance around that in conjunction. Mike and Chris worked with the chiefs and also town staff, town manager to put this together. And now it is before us for a public hearing. So if there's anybody here who would like to speak about the line of duty determination ordinance, the public hearing is open, either for or against. Okay, hearing none. One more time. Anybody would like to speak about the line of duty determination ordinance? Okay, hearing none, we will move on and close that public hearing and move on to our last public hearing, which is Veterans Property Tax Exemption Ordinance. Mr. Town Manager, I think this was one that you and your staff brought forward. It was, kind of it was a redundancy in as a result of state legislation that affords veterans with 100% disability an opportunity for an increased tax abatement. We already had a tax abatement for veterans who were 100% disabled, and so this is basically cleaning up some of the language in our own ordinance and offering basically an opportunity for those who qualify to take the greater of the two benefits. So with that as a summary, we talked about this the last time. We have the public hearing is now open on the property tax, the Veterans Property Tax Exemption Ordinance. Is there anybody who would like to speak in favor or against on that? Hearing none. One more. Anybody here to speak on the Veterans Property Tax Exemption Ordinance? Okay, hearing none, then we will close this public hearing and we will move into the regular meeting. Just so everybody knows, the public hearings are now closed, so we won't talk about those and hear feedback during those public hearings because those are closed, but we will still take comments during public communications later in the meeting. And following public communications, we will vote on each of those three ordinances if you want to stick around. Okay, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Valerie DiPaolo. Here. William Diedzik.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Toni Morrison.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here.
Jack Perry.
Here.
Jennifer Klock.
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here, would everybody please stand for the prayer and the flag salute?
Heavenly Father, give us grace tonight to understand that the impact we make upon this community is not just for today, but for the generations who will follow us. Help us to do what is right and, if need be, courageous. We commit ourselves, our decisions, and the town of Southington under your care. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, Okay, we're looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, last regular meeting.
Regular session meeting, which is September the 9th. Is that correct? Yep.
Second.
So we have a motion from Chris and a second from Mike. Any discussion on the meeting minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Bill, are you in favor?
Yes.
Okay, Bill is in favor for the record, so the motion passes unanimously 9-0. Councilperson Communications. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chair, we have another set of minutes to approve?
We have the special, we do have, no, we don't have them on our agenda, though. We'll have to put them on, unless we want to add them.
It's on as generic minutes, so you can approve them. There's no specific date on the agenda, so you can add, you can just.
So why don't we should motion to add that as a
I'll make a motion to add to the agenda the approval of the September 20th meeting,
special meeting?
special meeting.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to add that. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thanks, Bill. Chris?
And now I have a change, there's just a typo on the adjournment, which is on page 2. It says Val DiPaolo Palmieri seconded the motion, so I think it says my name there, but it's Val DiPaolo seconded the motion, so
Okay.
just a amendment to those minutes.
Okay, so that's a motion to amend those?
Motion to approve as amended.
Okay, we have a motion to approve as amended with the name change.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. Any discussion on that? Val, you're okay with changing your name?
I'm fine with it.
Okay. All right, all in favor? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Or any abstentions? We're voting on the special meeting from this past
Yeah,
Friday.
I'm going to abstain.
You're abstaining, right?
Yes.
So 8-0-1, one abstention. Okay, now we'll move on to councilperson communications.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the only thing I wanted to say for Council Medic tonight is that this Friday at the, actually I have two things. So this Friday at the Southington High School football game, they are honoring alumni. So any Southington High School football alumni that wishes to be present, I guess at halftime they may do a ceremony to walk some alumni players out. And there's a meeting before the game, but you have to go to the Blue Knights Gridiron Club page and register. So anyone's interested, you can find, they have a Facebook page and they have a website that you can go on. So any alumni football players that wish to attend and be recognized, you can go on and do that. That's for this Friday night's game, and they want everyone registered by Wednesday. So you have a couple of days to go online and do that as well. And then the other thing, Mr. Chair, is I'd like to add something to our agenda tonight, an executive session, at the end of the meeting, or before the end of the meeting anyway, for two items. The building department pending litigation and legal opinions, and real estate are the two issues that will be discussed.
Okay,
Okay.
the real estate matters.
Real estate on the west end of town.
Okay, so we have a motion to add executive session for real estate and for pending litigation.
I'll second.
We have a second. Any discussion on that? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to add executive session prior to adjournment on our agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and maybe we can give a shout out to the, since you mentioned the Blue Knights for a great rebound win.
Yes.
They had an excellent game.
Played well Friday night.
Excellent game. Congrats to the Blue Knights. Okay. Yes, please, Jim.
I have one thing. Last Thursday, I had the distinct pleasure to attend the United Way celebration for unsung heroes in town, and the room was packed, and the guest feature was Valentine the Clown, Diana Sheard. I've been friends with Diana and her husband Tom for a long time, and I just wanted to say that I think they did a fantastic job giving her a celebration and a party, and I was proud to attend. And that's pretty much it for Constellation Communications.
We should have brought our noses, Jim.
Oh, yes,
That
that would
would've
have
been-
been good.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Val?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just one quick announcement is the Leading Ladies Luncheon is Friday, October 11th, so I know that's coming up quick. And it's generally at 12 o'clock. I know some of the gentlemen may be there to serve, but they're recognizing Beth Smedick this year as the leading lady, and she's done a lot of work in our town, and I think a wonderful nominee, an honoree. So if anybody needs any information, just get in touch with me and send you in the right direction.
Wonderful. Thanks for bringing that up. That's great. Hopefully, we'll see all the gentlemen there serving and having a
That was
table.
nice.
We'll have a little competition, an extra $5 donation to whoever gets the lowest.
Are you gonna wear your nose?
No.
I might wear mine.
Okay. Thank you, Councilwoman DePaulo. Anybody else? Ms. Clark?
Two things. This Saturday, there's still time to sign up. The Leaf 12 to 2, we're partnering, Open Space is partnering with the Barnes Museum for a Farm Heritage History event. So go to the Barnes and sign up, still time. And second, most importantly, on Friday, September 13th, I had the very distinct honor and pleasure of joining Sergeant Neil Ayotte and his canine officer Tank on a ride-along in our town of Southington. And I want to thank Sergeant Ayotte and Tank for showing me a very small glimpse into what occurs during the shift of a Southington police officer. And although I cannot detail the events of the night, I was able to learn about what our first responders are up against day in and day out. And I can tell you without question, we have the best of the best working with us and for us and protecting us here in Southington. And I'm so proud of our Southington Police Department. And I want to also congratulate Neil for his recent promotion to detective, and a huge congratulations to Canine Officer Tank on his retirement.
That's great. It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jen, for updating us on that. What a wonderful, we have the best in Southington, our police department, our fire department. We are so thankful for all that they do for us. They've been extremely busy. We all get copied on a lot of the messages and the incidents that occurred. So we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all that you do. Okay, Chris.
Yes, I have a couple. First of all, this past Thursday, unfortunately, I was not able to attend that event, Jim, because we were at the Wall of Honor at Southington High School, and we have our 5 new inductees into the wall. Val DiPaolo for her former high school athleticism and into college and beyond, and for her community engagement. Norman Van Coor for his military service, especially during the Vietnam era. Mark Palmieri for his work with autistic children. Aaron Pelletier, who is a state trooper who lost his life. And Ken DeMoro, who primarily for his work as our town historian. So it was great to see the 5 new inductees into the Wall of Honor. Just wanted to give an update to the council as a whole. There was some question about the time frame for releasing the $5 million from the state for the Southington Library project. I just want to thank Representative Poulos, who reached out directly to the Attorney General and the state librarian in order to communicate with the town manager to make sure we know how we're getting that fund, since we have a plan moving forward. So thanks to Representative Poulos. And another save the date, October 21st, which is Monday, 6:45 p.m., is the 33rd Annual Red Ribbon Rally. I assume our MC is sitting in the audience again, former Chair Triano. So again, that's Monday, October 21st at 6:45 p.m. A couple other STEPS updates. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, so STEPS will be promoting the 988 National Suicide Crisis Hotline throughout the month. And finally, we had our first board meeting of the year, and STEPS has taken on a new chapter, working with the elementary schools to take on some lessons and eventually expanding that up to the middle and high school as well. So the asset building classrooms is truly making its way even more so into all of our schools. So just wanted to update everyone on that.
Awesome stuff. Thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome.
Congrats to all the Wall of Honor recipients. Anybody else on councilperson communications? Jack?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So
I guess I want to thank the town manager for getting me the numbers for Hart Street. I don't know if the rest of the council was brought up to par on that yet, but it looks to be about over $300,000 that repair cost the town of Southington taxpayers. So it's also my understanding that that was known by town staff well in advance that we could have mitigated that, because some of our paving dollars this year went to paving that road. And we've had residents, obviously reach out, ask why their roads aren't done. And we ended up having to do a whole, new part of Hart Street because of a repair that wasn't done before it failed. So, I just want to make sure that everybody understands, that the dollar amount and where it all went. And it's sickening, to say the least, that, our taxpayers' money wasn't wisely used. It could have been a $100,000 repair, and it manifested into over $300,000. So, again, I want to thank the town manager for getting me those numbers. And then if the town manager can also at some point give an update on the Planet bids, that would be greatly appreciated. Our previous town manager, I think it was on his agenda, or it was going to happen soon, but it never did, so.
Just for the record, I want to be careful about, I don't have knowledge, I don't know anybody here has knowledge about what town staff knew or didn't know about what needed to repair. So I want to be careful about the council making statements about the town staff and what, there may be a deficiency or not in an opinion of a council person. I think before we make that claim, that should be something that should go to the town manager, Jack, and investigated first. And I also will say that the Public Works subcommittee would also, I think, hear about whether these types of things are up and should have some input into that. If they weren't, then that can also be something that you can bring up as a Public Works member and also raise that and work that through the Public Works subcommittee. And if there's an issue that the Public Works subcommittee feels should be escalated to the council or to the manager, at the very least, I think before we bring it up here on the dais, I would hope that we would go through and try to address it, beforehand. If you still feel that there's an issue, we can certainly have the town manager look into it.
So Mr. Chair, I've mentioned this at several meetings, and I've done my due diligence, so I did not just come wielding with assumptions. I do have some proof behind that. Okay. So, again, that's, your opinion and my opinion. Okay. But I did do my due diligence.
Okay, please, I would then say if you have some evidence of some wrongdoings, Jack, I would like you to bring them to the town manager and let's have them investigated.
Certainly will.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Public communications? Okay. Hearing none, let's move on to item 4, report of special committees. Chris, Apple Harvest.
It is that time of year. The Apple Harvest is here once again, can't believe it. So first of all, the festival officially opens on Friday, October 4th. It is for 2 weekends, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the following Friday, October 11th, 12th, and 13th, when the festival ends. Official opening ceremonies is Friday, October 4th at 5:30 p.m., so council, please attend if you can, right on the main stage. Last meeting, I thanked our student ambassadors. If it's okay, Mr. Chair, I do have some thanks for many community members for their efforts. As we all know, it's a huge obligation and benefit to our whole community, and we wouldn't be able to do this without the many volunteers that we have. So I'd like to begin. I'd like to begin by first of all thanking our sponsors. These sponsors in total helped to raise over $60,000 for the festival itself. So our bronze sponsors this year are Tilcon, Richard Chevrolet, and Bristol Health. Our silver sponsors this year are Goosetown Communication, Eversource, Trinity Health, Rosie's Chocolates, HQ, Quantum Biopower, Momentum Solar, Ion Bank, JAR, and Hartford Healthcare, specifically the Go Health Urgent Care, because they're also another sponsor. Our gold sponsors are Liberty Bank, Price Chopper, Nanfito Roofing and Siding, and Rhea Clinic. Our platinum sponsors are AMR, BMW, and Cox Communications. And our main stage sponsor is also Hartford Healthcare. So they actually came in at 2 separate sponsorship levels for us this year. So again, over $60,000 raised. I want to thank them. I'd also like to acknowledge we have 3 staff members that work tirelessly to make the festival the success it is. We'll start with Melissa Kakuza, who's our sponsorship coordinator. She works firsthand with all the sponsors mentioned. Lara Nichols is our assistant festival coordinator, and Dave LaPrey is our festival coordinator. So I'd like to thank the 3 of them. Also, many volunteers that work together to put the festival and make it the success that it is. And these are all volunteer positions. So first of all, the advisory committee, Jim Champagne, Jeremy DeCarli, Robert Ives, Tom Lombardi, Jerry Triano, and then our 2 chiefs are on there as well. In charge of different subcommittees, arts and crafts, is Dave LaPrey, Lara Nichols, and Cody Robinson. In charge of our beverage sales and distribution are Carl Carlone, AJ Colwick, Brandon Berlin, and Abby Kelly. Entertainment, Dave LaPrey, Jerry Limmer, Joe Materano. Festival operations, Dave LaPrey, Lara Nichols, Jim Champagne, Paul Champagne, and Bob Tonin. Our finance and accounting team, we have a lot of our finance department here, Mr. Bowes, I look to you. Tom Lombardi, Dennis Bougie, Jim Bowes, Denise Johnson, Joe Lebenik, Nino McCagnon, Jim Morelli, Edward Pocock Jr., Pam Stanforth, Kathy Sweetman. In charge of the parade again is Tony Lamberto and Heidi Lamberto. In charge of our volunteers, AJ Colwick, and our website and social media, thank you to Lara Nichols. Aside from that, just huge thanks to all our civic groups and all the volunteers. We have people volunteering to work the beverage booths for the festival itself, but also just working at their various civic groups. This is not just an investment over the next 2 weekends, but really a lot of the money raised goes back into the community year-round through scholarships or special donations. So a huge thanks to all that are helping to make the festival the success that it is. And hope to see everyone down there.
Thank you, Councilman Palmera. I can almost smell the fritters.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any questions on Apple Harvest from the council? Okay, hearing none, let's move on to sewer. Councilman Morrison.
Yeah, this is going to be very short because we didn't have a quorum for the meeting. So we didn't reschedule because there was no votes that we had to do. So the business will become, the next meeting. We just had an informal chat instead. That's it.
Okay. Any questions on the informal chat? Okay, Chris.
Can I just make one more comment?
Please.
Not about that. I forgot to say I have brochures here, so I'll leave them up here. So after the meeting, if any resident would like to grab one, it's here. Please feel free to
Excellent.
grab
Well,
those.
we'll pass them down to the town clerk, and we'll put them a little closer where people might feel comfortable while grabbing them.
Can I grab one more, Paul?
Absolutely. There you go. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for the special committee updates. Let's move on to item 5, Town Manager's Report. Mr.
Thank
Town
you,
Manager.
Mr. Chairman. I've got good news and I've got bad news. I'm going to switch the order of my report just to get to the bad news first. Plantsville construction project. I know it's the bane of everybody's existence. If you're trying to travel down there, it's not easy. It's taking up a lot of town staff time as well. I know the businesses are affected. The good news is a lot of the work is completed. The bad news is the engineering firm that planned this project out 12 years ago didn't adequately determine the full depth of reconstruction on part of the roads. They ended up finding some trolley tracks and some other things. We're currently on budget except for that additional work. So right now we're back to CROG and the state DOT looking. We've submitted a submittal to them asking for additional funds for unseen circumstances. CROG has supported it. It's at the State Department of Transportation. We're expecting news within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Once that's done, we can start some of the heavy milling and reconstruction of the road. And most of that's around the crosswalk by the 9/11 Memorial. That's where most of that heavier work is going to be. So stay tuned for that. We should have an update. I'll get an update to the council if I have one this week. The good news is we have Mr. Bowes in the audience. I want to take credit for this, but I'll give it to him.
Mr. Town Manager, before that, can we ask the council if they have any questions on Plantsville?
Absolutely.
Any questions on Plantsville? Okay, thank you.
Just quickly, sorry. But you said right now we're on budget.
We're on budget except for the
For that.
unforeseen circumstances, which we've gone to the state asking for additional
We'll
allotment.
see what they,
CROG is
Depending
supportive
on
of
what
it.
they
We don't
say.
anticipate a problem, but we're on hold until we get those funds.
okay.
And just as a reminder for those who are watching, I'm sorry, Val, it is fully funded project from the state.
From the state.
So when we say we're on budget, we're on budget with the state grant that we received. So now we're asking for, to close the gap with the unforeseen circumstances.
Great.
Sorry,
Thank
go
you. No, thank you.
And the really good news is, it's gonna be a difficult budget like it is every year, but this year coming is gonna be very difficult. So Mr. Bose has done a wonderful job. As we know, interest rates have kind of crept down over the last few months a little bit, and that's really made a big impact in the municipal borrowing market. So Mr. Bose has reached out to our bond counsel and our advisors and put together a plan to refinance $27.5 million of our outstanding debt. So that is well, I'll let him spill the beans on how much money it will be saving the town per year going forward.
Mr. Bose, thank you for coming.
Sure. Thank you for having me. Good evening.
Good evening.
What am I? Am I on TV?
You are.
You were.
Just leave that there.
Your ratings are going to drop like a stone. No, thank you, Alex. Mr. Chairman, members of the council, we are selling bonds on October 2nd, new issue money. So we were going to do this a few months ago, and we extended it out because hoping that rates would come down a little bit more. And as you are well aware, the Federal Reserve Bank reduced one of their key interest rate factors last week, 2 weeks ago now. The market's been building in sort of a decrease in interest rates for the last couple months anyhow. Well, anyway, this has now presented us with an opportunity to refund, as what we call them, or refinance, what some folks say. But it's refunding some of the some older bonds that we have to potentially save money on interest. That, obviously rates came down, calling those bonds, selling refunding bonds at a lower interest rate. The good news is that we estimate somewhere, if rates stay about where they are, we're estimating about $900,000 in savings and interest from the original times that the bonds were issued, and I'll get to that in a minute. It's not going to be all at once because these bonds don't mature until 2037, I believe, or something like that. So the savings will be spread, starting off like maybe $90,000, $100,000 in the first few years, and then trickling down as we get down to the next. I think it's a 12-year life altogether that's left on all of these maturities. Why am I here? Because State of Connecticut Statute 7370 requires municipalities in Connecticut to get authorization by way of resolution of the governing body to do refunding bonds. We don't do it to sell new money, but when we refund, that's already gone through the processes. Town manager, to the Board of Finance, to the town council, to the public at referendum. Okay, so that's taken care of. I don't have to come back to you and say, hey, we're selling the bonds now. But when we're refunding bonds, state statutes require that we get the resolution of the governing body. So that's basically why I'm here. Or else I
Thank
wouldn't
you.
be with
We're not extending the term whatsoever.
Correct.
Same term, just lower rates.
Correct. By state statute, actually, we can't extend the term. Unlike a mortgage, you might consider it sort of like refinancing your house. Only when you refinance your house, you could actually add to the term of the original mortgage, especially if you had students, children that were students in college, like my wife and I did. So you might extend that a little bit. We can't extend past the original life of the bonds when they were first sold. So Alex hit that point quite correctly. We're planning on refunding right now 4 issues, 2 issues that were issued in 2015, and one of those issues was actually a refunding issue from bonds that were sold in 2007 and 2009. The original, the new money issue that we're refunding was about $26.9 million. We have about $10 million left. I'm rounding a little bit, so if you're adding them up, it might not come to the exact point. Most of those projects were borrowed for the the 2015, the middle school projects, as you remember. I remember one of you especially remembers those projects pretty well, as well as a sludge thickener and odor control project that was at the water pollution control plant at the time, and about $5 million for some road and bridge projects at the time. The second issue is what we call Lot B of 2015, which we funded 2007 and 2009 bonds. Those are mostly for Kelly and South End schools. We have about, those are almost all paid off. We only have about $2.5 million left on those issues. The 2016 bond issue was $17.2 million. That was mostly the middle schools and road and bridges. We have about $9 million of principal left on that. And the 2018 issue, which was originally sold, we sold $8.8 million worth of bonds. And most of those, you might remember the Calendar House building project as well as road and bridge project improvements. That's the most, the larger projects for that issue. And there's about $5 million remaining on that issue. So rates right now on some of those bonds are we're sold at coupon rates between 3 and 5%. Right now, we think we're going to be able to refund them still around 3, but we're going to get that other end down probably around the 3.5, 3 3/4. And that's where the savings is going to start to come in. So that's what we're hoping for. And with that, I'll leave it to you, except that when you do, Mr. Chairman, if I may, in your package, you folks received the language for the resolution. It's in bold type. If whoever makes that resolution, if you should so choose, and I hope you would, that you would just read that bold print for the record. That's
Thank
all.
you. To the town manager, thank you, Jim. I think a resolution that is put forward to the council that's proposed by you, Mr. Town Manager, I think we can vote on it tonight, right? We don't need to send this for public hearing.
Yes.
Okay, very good. Any questions for the town manager or the director of finance? Please, Val.
So, Jim, thanks for
Hi.
the report. So I know this does get a bit confusing, but in this resolution, so it's the town manager, the treasurer, and the director of finance. You, in the three of you, work this project. I mean, it's going to be over a long period of time. So how do you determine, you're going to determine the amount and the dates and the interest rates?
That's correct. Yeah. Well, when we go to sell, that the market will determine how those line up. When we go to sell now, we're estimating that the savings is going to be about $900,000.
So
That's going to be a little bit conservative because I don't want to say $1 million and it comes in at $950.
Right.
I'd
it's
gonna
gonna
come
be
back
that
and
day.
say to you it was
It's gonna be
$950.
that day, right?
Correct.
Whatever but you're going to take one at a time?
No, actually, we're going to be selling 27 point, whatever that amount comes in at. That's the amount we're going to be selling that day.
That day? in one
Correct.
day? Okay, all right.
Yeah, we don't sell them by those original bonds actually get paid off. When we actually go through a legal process to call them, they get
Yep,
called,
And then all these get paid off?
and those get paid off to an escrow agent, and then the new bonds get issued.
Right, okay, and we move forward with the new bonds?
Correct.
Obviously. Okay.
And like Alex had said, you can't by law extend the life of the original issues. For each of those components, the 15, 16, 17, and 18, we
Right.
can't, so the amount of the bonds that are going to be sold as they mature will stagger, just like these original maturities we're going to be staggering as well.
Okay,
And even if, frankly, even if it weren't a state statute, it's not a federal law, believe it or not, it's a state statute. I should have brought what the bond not the prospectus, but what the actual transcript of a bond issue looks like. It's about 2 bound books about that big. It's several thousand pages. I was going to bring one.
Oh,
but
that's okay,
I said,
Jim,
I
thanks.
didn't feel
Yeah, we
like,
don't
in
need
case it rained, I don't want to get it wet.
Any other questions for the finance director?
that's good, thank you.
Anybody?
I've got a comment, by the way.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is just a comment for the record. This is a tribute to the fiscal management of the town. They were able to get lower bond rates like this. Obviously, we did last year. If you remember, Jim. And it's just a tribute to everybody who's contributed to this. From any position they're in. And I'd just like to put that on the record.
And it takes the whole team. It takes staff,
it
it
is.
takes the boards, various boards, and we appreciate what you're doing.
And
Jim.
I can tell you that I shouldn't do this. I haven't had a chance to talk to my boss yet, but I got a phone call about 4:30 this afternoon, and our AA plus rating, which is a very solid rating, was reaffirmed
Excellent
by
news.
Standard & Poor's.
That's
I'm
the
sorry,
first.
Alex.
He broke
I was-
the news,
I
Alex.
had an appointment. I had a personal appointment at 5:00. I had to run, and the person was on the phone with me at 25 after 4. So
And you've got the news station here. You broke it. You broke it.
Oh, I broke, no. Sorry about that.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have questions for the finance director? Okay, just as a reminder, when we get to action on this, whoever does make the motion, please take the packet and read the entire bold-faced top of the resolution, please. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, folks.
And then, Mr. Chairman, if I could just
Yes.
add two quick things. Mr. Perry asked for a quick update on Planet Bids. Happy to give it. All of our bids are going on Planet Bids at this time. We have not received a electronic bid yet, and I'm pushing for it. I took a paper bid last week from a gentleman who drove down from, I believe, Enfield or East Hartford, and when I explained to him he could have just did it through the system, he looked at me and he was so upset at himself because he's like, I just spent 2.5 hours of my day driving this down when I could have pressed a button. He's like, I looked at the bids, I was in Planet Bids, I didn't know I could press the button. So it's getting out there. Hopefully we get more people bidding since they're not worried about driving all the way over here. We are getting more bidders looking. We're getting people signed up to look, and it's giving us some more visibility. So next year, I'm debating about going electronic only. It also adds a layer of protection for town staff. There's never question of, hey, when did this bid come in? Oh, you lost the envelope, you lost my envelope, or did someone look through the envelope? So considering going all electronic, we still have people come in and bring bids literally on scratch paper. So I'm trying to be good to everybody, but 2025, we may go all electronic. And just a plug with the bids, we had some seasonal leaf labor there. We are hiring, you can go on Southington.org, the HR portal. We are hiring temporary seasonal leaf workers. If you want to get your foot in the door to the town of Southington, it's a great opportunity. $20 an hour, 4.5 weeks or so, 9.5-hour days. Love to have you come on. If you want to see what work is like in the highway department, it's a great way to get your feet wet. It's a great way for kids who are trying to, between jobs or between school, to really try something and get some experience. And we'd love to have you join the team for a couple months. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. We're moving on to item 6, Town Attorney's Report. Mr. Town Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My report is brief. As the council's aware, and many of the people in the public are aware, the town did make an offer, along with several other members, other parties, to purchase what's known as the Bank of America property, which is on Main Street, not far from where we sit today. The offer was submitted and acknowledged. We expect to hear a response within 1 week. That'll not just be for the town of Southington, but all of the bidders that participated in the first bid as well as the second go around with it.
Okay, any questions for the Town Attorney? Thanks to all for your hard work on getting that done as well. Okay, let's move on to item 7, public communications. We're inviting the public up. Anybody who's a town resident or works in the town can come on up and speak at the podium on any topic that they wish. Public communications is open. Don't everybody run at once. Do we have to take numbers? Okay, good. Last call, public communications. Okay, hearing none, we will close public communications. Move on to item 8, old business. We are on action of line of duty determination ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the line of duty determination ordinance.
And we're looking for a second. Chris, did you want to? I know you co-sponsored it. I'm sorry, Val.
I'll second.
Is it okay if we allow one?
Absolutely.
Okay. Chris?
Yep, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mike and a second from Chris. Any discussion on item A, action of line of duty determination ordinance?
Mr. Chair, just to
Yes.
kind of build on what you said earlier, I want to thank town staff and the town attorney and the chiefs for speaking with us about this. I know there's a lot of back and forth. We wanted to make sure we got it just right. So I want to thank everyone involved. Chris was great to work with. Very good job, I think, by all.
Anybody else, Chris?
And I agree, Mike, thank you. It was great working with you on this. Today, we got examples of other ordinances, Glastonbury, Coventry, and Towland. So I just want to highlight, I know, Mike, we talked about this from the beginning, and with Alex, the town manager, we talked about this too, the value of having a committee rather than an individual. So in Glastonbury, for example, the one individual, the town manager, makes a determination. In Coventry, They're a little bit better. There's a committee of 2 people making the decision, and the second person isn't always the same, depending on which department has the casualty. And then in Tolland, there is a committee, but it's only a committee of 3. So I really, again, Mike and I talked about this, and I know we talked about it with you too. Having the committee of 5 really, I think, makes it just a fair process. We can get it done timely. So just another shout out for the work in our town. I really think we've got a great model here.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Chris. Okay, I think this is a great idea. I agree with all the comments, and, I think this puts in place a process where we can quickly, help a family who has had a member who has potentially passed in the line of duty, have the municipality involved in making a quick determination and hopefully get support as quickly as possible. So with that said, why don't we call the roll, Madam Clerk, on this?
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Diedrich,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously 9-0. Item B, action on veterans' proposed tax exemption ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to pass the Veterans Property Tax Exemption, 375-8.
Okay, we have a motion,
Second?
and we have a second. Any discussions on that? Okay, hearing no discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Diedrich,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously 9-0. Okay, item C, action on Aaron Pelletier, public servant, surviving spouse, line of duty tax abatement ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve that amendment.
We have a motion to approve by Jim.
I'll second, and then we can open it for discussion.
We have a second from Chris. Okay, why don't we open it up for discussion? Jim, anything from your side?
Yes, again, I just want to say that, that day was a tragic day, and discussions that we had were really all about what Southington could do for the surviving spouse. That night, my phone lit up by a lot of people in Southington, so everybody wanted to help. They all wanted to do things immediately, and I think you were wise, Paul, in saying that, let's just sit back and see what they really need. We determined right away that mortgages and taxes are the 2 biggest bills that someone has to worry about. And so in the spirit of Southington, we decided to write this ordinance, or this amendment, sorry.
Okay. Anybody else? Chris?
Just one thing for starters that I think was just an oversight. The other 2 ordinances we passed referenced the Connecticut general statutes, so I'm hoping we can just add that language in here. So pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 12-81X. And again, the other ones we passed have that in. I think that was just an oversight, but it does reference the Connecticut General Statute that I think is important to mention in there.
Okay. So we have before us the ordinance. I know we shouldn't make substantial changes, but this sounds like housekeeping to me.
That's totally fine.
Agree?
Attorney Murtasher can handle the quote-unquote housekeeping verbiage.
Okay. So it's 1281X that we'll add in. Okay, other comments or questions?
I did want to also add, Mr. Chair, that we tried to get this to be even more comprehensive by including all municipal workers, so teachers, town hall, highway department, anybody that really had a catastrophic death on the job that was working for the community. And we learned through our legal department that the state statutes don't allow us to do that. So there is an exemption for emergency professionals, but it's limited there. So we have been in touch with Senator Sampson, and we're trying to get the state to modify their language so that we can offer that to a larger, broader group.
Thank you. Val?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
thank you. So I had mentioned to you, Councilor Palmieri and you just before the meeting. So, I think this is, an excellent opportunity to do what we can at the local level. I did have a couple calls from residents, and I told those residents that I would do a little research as to what other towns were doing with these statutes, or with these ordinances. And so I was able to pull up 7 towns, you know, all different sizes. And there was just a little bit of language that I thought, if it's deemed to be housekeeping, if we could possibly consider it. As far as the owning property, all of the 7 towns had said that surviving spouse owns and occupies the property. Many of them said occupy as a primary residence. So I just thought, you know, that tightens it up a bit, as far as if we say owns property, you know, someone can own property, not be living there, and I think our intent is
To assist them.
to assist them with the primary residence. So I don't know, Lou, if you think, you know, more of the towns had own the property and occupy it as a primary residence.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent comment, and I do believe it's the intent of this ordinance, so
I agree.
including the language, we already have, as you know, own, we would just add and occupy. I could certainly add as as his or her principal place of residence, if you'd like, or simply occupy. As you know, it relates to 2 parts, personal property as well as real property.
Right.
But I don't think that, I know, that won't be deemed a substantive change, and with the council's approval, I would be happy to add that specific phrase, occupy.
Right.
I think that's in number 4, right? At the front page, property ownership?
Section 4, Paul?
Yep. Sorry,
No.
I'm sorry, my
Section-
apologies. Section 3, number 4.
Right, the surviving spouse must own at the time of application. Right, so we might want to have in there, the surviving spouse must own and occupy
Okay.
I would
property. as-
recommend we add occupy as a primary residence,
Residence.
just so that there's no gray. If we're going to do it, let's make it crystal clear.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Right, right. And the other thing that the 7 towns did have, all of the towns on their termination of the abatement, all of the towns had death of the surviving spouse, and all of the towns had remarriage of the surviving spouse. So, you know, our termination is the 15 years, and then we have the abatement shall terminate if the surviving spouse no longer resides in Southington, and then the surviving spouse no longer owns real or personal property within Southington. I understand if we don't want to get into a large discussion about remarriage, but I think we need to, what I would like to see is maybe our section just says on termination of the abatement, the earlier of. So the earlier of 15 consecutive grand list cycles, the spouse no longer resides in Southington, or we have to have like an or, because this could be considered to be an and. So we should have or, you know, the spouse no longer owns real or personal property within Southington. And then, you know, if we wanted to consider the death of the spouse or the remarriage of the surviving spouse.
The only comment I'd make with that, I don't mean to sound sarcastic, if the spouse dies, they can't reside in Southington.
Right, it's implied.
Right, but one of the towns, when I looked back at their intent on it, was if a spouse, they talked about if a spouse passed away, the estate would still own the property, and then if an estate is opened, does the estate continue to receive the abatement until the property is sold? So, you know, after looking at these other towns, and they all were pretty consistent on this, I'm just trying to tighten ours up so that, you know, we feel good, you know, going forward with it.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I'm just curious, Val, and maybe Lou can help as well, or even Bill. So it's going to be in a person's name, right? The spouse. And once they take it out of their name and putting into a trust or something like that, they would be ineligible anyway. Am I right in saying that?
That's correct.
So I
Well,
think it would have
Well,
to
to
be.
be
in their name.
honest, the other towns dealt with that as well, and said
Really?
if it, yes, and so I printed out, the other towns. If it went into a trust, it's still, because most times it's a revocable trust,
Yeah.
it still allowed the abatement. So,
But it's not explicit that we're dealing with trusts. I mean, here it clearly states that the person must own real estate, and you're not an owner when it goes into a trust.
if it
It's
goes
a
into,
different,
if it goes into revocable trust, you still do own it.
well, okay, so it's a conditional, but, I mean, I don't think the intent was to, if these go into a trust, or if a person passes, if the owner passes away. So I'm fairly certain that those are housekeeping issues, but if you don't feel that, if you feel that it's too much, we can,
I don't have an issue at all, whatever the
Death is
council's pleasure.
Yeah, I'm fine with the death piece.
I just think
What's that?
I'm fine with putting a death piece in, because I didn't know
think
about
it's-
revocable trust being continued on.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Val, why don't you explicitly, let's talk about section 6. How
Well,
would you
be-
redo
I would, right, so
2?
section 6, I would probably say,
Because to me, these were always implied, but
It-
if you think
right,
making
and
it
in-
explicit
and
helps,
implying, I think hopefully this won't be used, we don't want this
okay.
often, but I would say that we could say the tax abatement shall cease upon the earlier of the following. And you can say, the first one expires after, use our language, after 15 consecutive grand list cycles from the date of death. So that would be the 15 years, right?
Yep. So that's number 1.
That's number one, and then you can even say, most of the towns said that the property ceases to be primary residence.
I'm sorry?
The property ceases to be a primary residence of the surviving spouse. That could be 2.
So I thought we already took care of that in the first section, though. We're making redundant.
Well, this is, we're gonna say what would terminate the abatement, and then just give a list.
The only thing is, the abatement is annually requested. So they wouldn't qualify if they were to reapply the next year and they didn't meet the criteria in section 3. So I think,
So by putting putting the primary residence in section 3, you feel okay with?
I think it's
Okay.
enough, because they do need to apply each and every year. So there's a reapplication. They have to show that they meet the criteria in section 3 for eligibility.
Right.
So,
Okay.
just to keep things simple and not make too many changes,
Okay, all right.
I would just ask that we keep it
Okay.
as simple. So you were also talking about surviving spouse no longer resides in Southington, and then putting in "or" instead of "and," or instead of a
Well,
semicolon?
you would say, if you want to keep that, the surviving spouse no longer resides in Southington, that would be on the next one,
Yep.
right?
And then, did
And
you want to
then-
incorporate the surviving spouse passes,
Right, I would.
or
encour-
no
you-
longer
You could keep,
resides?
and you could keep the surviving spouse no longer owns real or personal property within Southington.
Yep, that's already there.
That's there. And then if you want to add the death of the surviving spouse. It just gives you're given basically, the abatement will terminate upon the earlier of, and then you have those. And say after Lou, put "or" in there,
Sure.
right before the last line.
So Lou, I know you have shorthand going over there. Did you get all of it?
I sure do.
All right. Are you comfortable with the changes from a legal perspective?
Yes, not a problem at all.
Okay. Does anybody have any, I would just say that, I know that from our caucus, we did talk about the remarriage, and, the feeling, and please, if anybody else disagrees, the feeling really that we felt was, we didn't want to discourage people from getting remarried for the sake of a financial tax abatement that might otherwise provide a benefit, for somebody to have, who may have children or may want to, get remarried. We don't want a financial decision to be made because of that.
Based on that, right.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I just came across all this with these towns, and I just thought it was, and I'm sure there's more towns that are putting these ordinances in place. So while we're doing it, it just really makes sense to have it, have it really tightened up. We have our intent here. I think it's a good ordinance to have.
Thank you. Any other discussions, comments? Chris?
Just to go back to Val's point and what I said earlier, I'm looking at the actual Connecticut general statutes now, and it does say by ordinance, a municipality, a program to abate all or a portion of the property taxes due with respect to real property owned and occupied as the principal residence of the surviving
Yeah,
spouse.
it was implied, but
So it's covered there, especially if we reference that state statute itself.
But I'll add it anyways. Better be safe than sorry. Let's make it crystal clear.
And can I just ask, because we talked about this a little bit too, I know you and I talked about it a little bit too. Lou, can you just explain the difference between real property, because that's specifically what the state mentions, versus personal property?
Well, they're both tangible property. Real property is exactly what described it, real estate. That would be the land, the structure the land would be the real property. Personal property consists of any tangible items that might be on the real property or not. Cars, jewelry, clothing, items like that are deemed under the broad umbrella of personal property.
So my question, just to make sure we're doing everything proper, originally, and Jim mentioned it, we originally did want this to extend to active military service personnel, municipal employees, including teachers and other Board of Education staff, employees of the state of Connecticut, and employees of public utility. We had to exclude that because of the state language. So if the state is specifically mentioning real property, not personal property, are we able to extend that beyond, just like we wanted to do with these other employees that we had to exclude? Do we need to exclude personal because it's not part of the state language?
I believe that the section does reference, and forgive me, I'll pull it up now, the state statute. I believe it does reference personal and real, but I don't have it in front of me, so forgive me, just give me a moment.
Yeah, I'm just seeing
1281.
real property. And again, I just want to make sure we're doing it right, because Paul, you and I spoke, I absolutely am in favor of this for these other, especially, obviously, I see it being in a school myself, but I understand we have to pull it out. So I just want to make sure that we're
we
following.
can only do what the state legislation allows us to do, so let's get confirmation on that, and then we'll,
If it helps, Lou, the 7 towns that I made copies of do not, it's real property only.
only real property.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is the bigger piece.
which is the larger.
I mean, it's the larger tax, for the most part anyway, so. We'll just wait 1 second for Lou to take a look.
781.
Twelve 1281X.
Yes, I'm there. I'm looking on their definitions first, though. No, I have a different statute, same statute, different format, but you are correct, Chris, and that does not make reference to personal property, and I would encourage us to remove that section only because we don't want to expand or make a claim that someone can claim it's an invalid ordinance because we include items that are not specifically referenced by statute.
Yep.
Good pickup.
Okay, so then throughout the document, we'll just, we will, as part of the proposed amendments, Val and Chris, that you're putting forward, we will remove personal property references from the entire abatement. Is that correct? Because there's a few of them in there. I see it in section 1, I see it in section 3. I see it in section 5, but I was skimming through pretty quick. But I think if we all agree that it should be focused on real property, real estate taxes, which I still think is the large piece of the tax that most people think about when they think about.
Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest that to you. Quite frankly, the only real personal property that I can think of, that I'm sure there may be others, but the most obvious example would be an automobile or a vehicle. Other than that, generally residents are not taxed on personal property. So I would think that once again, the crux of the ordinance or the intent behind the ordinance is to provide a break that, as is clearly defined in Connecticut general statutes, would relate to real property.
Okay. So the proposal that we have before us is to remove the personal property references, also to clean up sections 3.4 and then section 6, as Val has brought up. Of course, we mentioned removing the personal property taxes, but we are also not going to re-put in the determination due to marriage. It's going to stay as is, okay, as proposed?
And then the last one, Paul, that I mentioned to start is just making reference to Connecticut General Statutes 12-81X.
Yep. So why don't we, before we take any more discussion, can we ask for an amended motion from where we are right now in a second on that, and then we'll open it up again for discussion? I think, Jim, it was you and Chris.
Yes, I'll modify my motion to accept the changes that we discussed.
And I'll modify my second.
Okay, so then now we're starting from our last discussion. Is there any other discussion now that we've got those on the record? Thank you, Chris and Val, for the discussion, and thank you, everybody else, for the willingness to listen and work with each other to, make this fruitful. Okay, if there's no other discussion, why don't we go ahead and call the roll, Madam Clerk?
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everybody. The motion passes unanimously, 9-0. Okay, item 9, new business tax refunds.
I apologize.
Oh, sorry, we
the-
have one more. Item D, action, I have one of those every meeting. Item D, action on refunding bond resolution.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, please read.
I'll read it.
Thank you.
Okay, that we pass a resolution that authorizing the issuance of $27,500,000 refunding bonds for payment of all or a portion of the outstanding principal of and interest in any call premium on the town of Southington's $26,920,000 general obligation bonds, issue of 2015 of $12,285,000. General obligation refunding bonds, issue of 2015, Series B, $17,200,000. General obligation bonds, issue of 2016, $8,815,000. General obligation bonds, issue of 2018, and costs related thereto.
So we have a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on those? Okay, hearing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
DiPaolo,
Yes?
Dietzick,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Clock,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
Chaplinsky.
Yes, motion passes unanimously, 9-0. Item 9, new business. Item A, tax refunds.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to accept our tax refunds that are presented in our packets.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously. And now I'm looking for a motion to go into executive session on real estate matters West Side and also building department pending litigation.
So moved?
Second.
Okay, motion and a second, and what we're going to do is we're going to take up the topic of pending litigation first. So all council members will be in the pending litigation. And then for the second topic, the real estate matters, we will exclude Councilwoman Clock and the town manager. And for both, for all the executive session, we will exclude the public and the press,
Including the town attorney.
including the town attorney. We will include the town attorney. He's staying for both. Okay, so all in favor of executive session? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, let's take a 5-minute recess so that we can clean up the room. Bill, please hang in there.